Alright guys, we are live just barely. I'm running about 8 minutes behind. I'm very sorry about that. These things do happen, I am told, going west. However, we are here now. It is time for Readings with Rebecca. I hope you guys are doing good today. I'm actually showing no concurrent viewers at the moment, but that's somewhat understandable because, once again, we are late. So just bear with me for a moment while I repost the links. So, what's going on, Rebecca? Why are you late? You're normally so much more professional than this. That is an excellent question. I am very glad that you asked it. I have been in Trail Shakedown my entire week. I know this sounds like a terrible excuse, but my entire life has been upended, and I am adapting actually quite well. Today, I've just been trying to do a lot, getting caught up, getting things kind of worked out. Let me get that light off there. And, doing some writing for the track, getting caught up with some housekeeping and editing stuff, and the time just got away from me. Also, I'm very proud to report that yesterday I got tattooed. So that's kind of, how do I, there we go. Yeah, I know it's hard to see, but Vegvasir and a couple of lines. But and runes. But anyway, very proud of those. That's the other thing that caught me. I had to do aftercare because I had just gotten out of the shower before I jumped in here for this live stream. So anyway, now you know the twisted and sordid life of the mountain hare, Rebecca Mickley. So how you guys doing out there this week? I'm showing that we have all of 3 people right now, but that's okay. No matter who is here, we are glad that you guys are here. Yes, thank you, Negamutu. I'm so glad that you're able to make it for the first 15 minutes. I heard from Finley that she won't be able to make it, but she said she'd be watching afterwards, so I just want to say, Finley, we understand life happens. We miss you, and I just wanted to give you a shout out to say thank you for being a patron. Thank you for all of the wonderful conversation. You're ultra rad. Hopefully we will see you here next week. Although, Readings with Rebecca next week, we might have to go through something like Gateways or something like that because we just might finish it up today. I believe Dawnbreak tops out at 45 chapters. We are currently on chapter 40. We'll just have to see what's going today, but it's very likely that today we will get to the momentous conclusion of Dawnbreak. So, Rebecca, how's that shakedown going? It's been interesting. Monday was rough. First days always are. Got me questioning everything, but I got through it. Got progressively easier as I went through the week. That's actually what the new tattoos are about. Degas, there, the one on my middle finger, is the rune for my patron goddess in my faith and symbolizes hope and spring and transformation and the dawn, which, wow, shocking that those are concepts that are near and dear to my heart, right? But anyway, my patron lady, Aostre. And then the 2 lines in one, it's kind of a little personal story. The Vegvasir, though, you guys are going to love this. There was a time in my life when I was a truck driver. And according to my trainer from truck driver training, I could mess up going in a straight line. I have a proclivity to get lost. I have a poor sense of direction, which is probably the one thing that you want to hear when you also know that I'm about to undertake a 2,600 some odd mile hike. Yeah. So, he called me wrong way. And that name has kind of stuck with me as a nickname that I don't exactly cherish or embrace, but nevertheless, it is a thing that exists. And the Vegvasir originally It was recorded in a compendium of Icelandic Slavic magic, I believe, in the 1880s, based off of much more ancient sources. Icelandic Slavic magic is the last surviving remnant of anything close to what we have resembling Norse and Saxon Germanic heathenry style magic. It's definitely its own thing, but it's at least a derivative of it. And as such, it's used by a lot of people in my faith community. It's supposed to guide you through bad weather and storms. It's supposed to keep you from getting lost. In fact, it's gained in power as the belief in it has changed. And so Vegvasir now is basically just a warding against getting lost. It's also ringed by the runes, which, as an author, the runes themselves mean a great deal to me. One of my favorite stories is a very short story from the tales, and Woden hung upon the tree for 9 days, a sacrifice of himself to himself, and then was pierced by a spear. The runes witnessing this revealed themselves to him. Now, the runes are an ancient runic alphabet. But if you consider that idea, the runes, in their power, made themselves available. They chose, somehow, to reveal themselves to Allfather Woden. And to me, it's always been a testament to the power of language, the power of the written word, and the power of thought that Woden would undertake such an arduous chore as hanging himself for 9 days to gain the knowledge of an alphabet. And now the runes are much more than an alphabet. They are magical. Within the runes are all magic. And so, but that's the thing. Words have power. That's huge. And so I have all the runes with me now. I have my lady's rune right here, where I can see it, and where I can always be reminded of who I am and who she is and what she represents to me. And yeah, symbols of hope, symbols of direction, symbols of purpose. All things I'm going to need as I'm kicking my own butt across California, Oregon, and Washington on the Pacific Crest Trail. Just so that you guys know, there will be a new article coming out on the trek probably tomorrow. But also possibly later on tonight. And there we have it. All right, it looks like we are going to have a low census today. That is okay. Just a second, I'm going to make a few more posts about the fact that we are live to a few family members. See if we can bump up those numbers. So talk to me, guys. You've been hearing me just ramble on incessantly. Let me know what you're doing this week. How you guys feeling? All that fun stuff. We are live. There we go. And once again, there we are. And do. We move for everyone. And there we go. Well, have a good one, Nega. It was nice to have you here. I hope that you have a fun day today. I am going to get your book sent off soon. I just haven't had a chance to get to the post office with everything that's been going on. But that's coming. There's going to be a huge flurry of mail activity going out in the next week or so, I think. So, yeah, here we are. Dawnbreak, last week, Snow completed her transformation and is now a snowshoe hare. She is undergoing flight recertification, has had her first harrowing experience with fleas, and has met Paula, a very kind human that owns a grooming shop that is transitioning into morphic care. She is now renting a back room from her as she prepares to exile herself, from whence she will eventually have to return. Allie, you made it! It's great to have you in, Allie. How you doing this week? Talk to me once the lag catches up with me. Yay, lag. And while I'm waiting for the lag to catch up with me, I'm going to push myself out of frame. You can see back into the shadowy abyss that happens to be my sleeping area, while I slide back into frame, because although Nega is gone, the water breaks must continue. I just realized that in my hasty rush that to get here 8 minutes late, because I'm just channeling the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland today, which annoys me because A, I am not a rabbit, and 2, I hate being late because these are very important dates. I had no time to run. I had no time to talk. I'm late. I'm late. I'm late. Travis is here. Good to see you, buddy. Shout out to another mega fan. Always nice to have you here. How you guys doing this week? Oh man. There's always that moment after you've been rushing when you're panicked, and it finally you just kind of settle into the chaos. You embrace the suck, and it's just okay, I'm here now. Things aren't as on fire as I think. And it's soon time to read again. Grand. Yep. I'm just going to fix this real quick. We're being so professional this week. It's just been one of those weeks where everything that can go wrong in some ways is, but it's also been really good. Like I said, Monday was a very rough day for my first day of Shakedown. Lots of pain, lots of challenges, but each day that I've persisted, it's gotten easier. Tomorrow, I'm actually heading down to Portland, and I'm going to be hiking through a huge forest preserve down there. And that's going to be a big challenge, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'll make sure that I'll take lots of pictures as I'm able, and I'll be reporting back on that next week. So, last week, as I said, we covered Snow. She has finished her tanking process. She has realized her dream of becoming a snowshoe hare as much as she possibly could. She's undergoing flight recertification in San Francisco, had her first harrowing encounter with fleas, and ended up meeting Paula, who is a very kind human whom she is now renting a room from as she prepares to exile herself, a state from which she will one day have to return. Shameless plug, Exiles Return, available now on Amazon for the low cost of 99 cents for the digital, or $9.99, I do believe, for the paperback. Give it a look if you haven't already. And now that we've gone through Dawnbreak, you are in prime position to for the next book. Yeah, there we go. Guys, I am just, it's all catching up with me. But if there are no further comments, questions, remember, please hold all death threats to the end of the live stream. Let's get into it, shall we? Click. Anybody want to be my water break counter out there this week? We've already had one. This will be two. Ding. All right. Chapter 40, Dawnbreak by Rebecca Mickley. Just a quick trip across town, Paula begged. She was standing behind the counter at the front of her home business. I was curled up on the couch in the waiting area. She was lying. There was no such thing as a quick anywhere in the Bay Area. I almost got eaten by a German Shepherd today. I'm tired, I countered. There was a sound of rustling from under the counter and a particular type of click that caused my ears to swivel with interest. Hey, Brick, she offered. My stomach growled. Can't be bought, I challenged. That's what they all say, she replied, and reached into her large black purse with gold accents, revealing banana chips. You're an evil woman, I accused. She shrugged. It gets results. So do we have a deal? Fine, I complained dramatically, dragging myself off the couch with an exaggerated stretch and a yawn, hopping over and swiping the Timothy Hay brick with a grumble. Somebody's testy today, she observed. I wasn't joking about the shepherd, I insisted as I detected the sound of car keys. What supply store did she use that would be open at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday? It didn't matter. I had food now. Dinner for a car ride didn't seem so bad. Are you okay? Do you need a doctor? Paula was suddenly at my side, checking me over, doing everything but putting her hands on me. After the last few weeks, I deeply appreciated her restraint. I'm okay. Mule kicked the dog, got called a bitch. Such a friendly city you have here. When I was stuck in human existence, it largely had been, at worst, indifferent. There were times now where the world seemed decidedly sinister and pointed against my direction. Nibbling my haybrick, I lapsed into a reflective silence. It disappeared faster than I expected it to. You are hungry, she said. I'm fine, I replied. I was conserving now the splurge for later. A pained look crossed her face. We made our way to the car. The road became more windy and I began to recognize the campus. What are you up to? This is no store, I challenged as she came to a stop in the parking lot. Very good at pointing out the obvious. Come and see, she said, letting my curiosity burn at me. I still haven't gotten my banana chips, I protested as she opened my door. Like you can hop and eat them, Grumpy, she scolded. I drummed my hindpaw in agitation, but nevertheless followed along. Wednesday, about 2100 hours. Why did that sound familiar? We entered a building that gave way to a maze of meeting rooms and classrooms. She picked one and glided in. There were 5 other morphics in attendance, along with various humans, milling about in a large room. A white tiger wearing a business suit padded up to greet me. The support group. Paula, what have you done to me? I asked. It's just a party. The senator is throwing it as a memorial and as an outreach. Education and all that. Free meal, she explained. Memorial? I asked. Yeah, the hope was lost a year ago, last week. There's gatherings like this all over the world today to remember them. See, this is why I did this. You don't watch the news. You don't go out. I know I'm just a nosy old woman, but I'm worried about you. She had no idea what she had done. A year? It had been a year. The math clicked in my head as I looked around the room. All these people gathered around to remember Joyce and the 248, when I had been the one to kill them. Shame, fear, guilt, regret, all crashed into me, and I found myself in motion, paws slipping across the slick tile floors as I pushed and pushed towards an exit. I needed out. I needed air. How could I have forgotten? How could I have been so busy as to let it slip my mind? The door was coming, approaching up ahead. I skittered to a stop and pounded into the push bar. It flew open and I burst out, surprising two students coming up the stairs. Streaking across the campus, the panic and the frustration of the day washed over me as I pushed myself further and further on, my heart pounding, ears down, just running, the pain driving me on like a fire. My hindpaws soon ached and my lungs burned. I was not built for marathons but sprints, and I had been running long by this time, longer than I was made for. My muscles burned and threatened to tear, but I just kept going. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to run and run until I couldn't feel or I could see her again. Oh God, how could I have forgotten? I had been distracted. I had been so comfortable since my emergence. My body faltered. I missed a step and tumbled, my muzzle smacking rudely into the cold, hard ground. Pain blossomed through my jaw and head, but there was no crack, only an aching soreness. I just lay there, panting on my side, staring up at the night sky, cool grass surrounding me. A random passerby walked up to me and, upon noticing my harness, spoke. "Are you all right, ma'am?" His words startled me, wrenching my attention from the peaceful sky. I shot up, looking around. I was in someone's front yard. "Yeah, I'm fine," I lied and turned, slowly making my way back towards campus after finding my bearings. They took that as enough and continued on their way. My tablet began to ring in its pouch on my harness. I managed to work it out. Paula was trying to get in touch, no doubt because of my quick exit. The screen was cracked. Perfect. Another thing I didn't need right now. "Hi," I said after tapping the answer button carefully. "Snow, are you okay? The way you burst out." Her panic was evident. Even in my frazzled state, swallowing air in panic gulps, my chest heaving. "Bad memories. Not your fault. Doing better now." A 3-point statement detailing I was okay. "I'd really like to listen. Please talk to me," she urged. "I really don't know if I can," I replied. "If I did and said too much, it could put her in danger." It could put me in danger. The Admiral had not shown up at my discharge for his health. "Well, if you ever decide you can, I'm right here," she offered. "I'll meet you back at the car." I carefully ended the call and put my broken tablet away. Snow has got a lot of hidden guilt inside of her. Grief does funny things to you. Life inevitably has to go on, and it kind of puts a layer over the grief sometimes, and it becomes a hidden thing, but it's still there like a landmine waiting to go off. And as we just saw, my grandmother died of cancer like almost 20 years ago. It was a really awful thing to see. And I remember one time after it had been about 6, maybe 7 months after she had passed, where I had gone a day or 2, maybe even 3. That time is kind of fuzzy for me. And I didn't really think about it. I just kind of went on with my life. I was busy with classes. I was busy with, the day-to-day of my life. And then I suddenly realized that I hadn't been thinking about her. And there was that sudden guilt. Now, my experience is nothing like Snow's, where she feels such a responsibility for what happened to the Hope. But, yeah, grief is a, just a real big challenge. I am still flustered today, and I'm not very nearly as eloquent as I normally am. I apologize, guys. You guys doing alright out there? Any questions, comments, or concerns? Maybe we should talk a little bit about tablets before we continue. Now, tablets are cell phones, but tablets are also like iPads and data pads. They are kind of a catch-all term in my Farthest Star Universe because digital devices have become so ubiquitous. Everyone has a tablet that's just like their personal tablet, and they're pretty advanced models. They connect and control televisions. They do kind of everything that a smartphone does, but just more advanced. What's it called? There's, they kind of do everything. They're kind of a digital passkey device. They've also kind of become wallets and stuff like that, paired with what are called GANs, genetic algorithm numbers, which is a unique number identifier based off of your unique genetic code that is assigned to you at birth. And between a scan of your GAN and your cell phone, your tablet, you can buy things. But tablets also have inferior cousins that are just like, large, very thin, very light screens that have very good battery life and all of this other stuff, and they are used for magazines and paperwork and all that other fun stuff. And so that's the way that tablets work. It's technology that's become so ubiquitous that it's universal, and there are multiple levels of complexity and expense relating to them. You could get a stack of regular, like, just dummy tablets that just display text on the screen and do like paperwork, like a PDF reader, essentially, for a few cents. Maybe you could get a pack of 20 or 30 of them for like $10. I mean, like, they're that cheap and ubiquitous. But like, the personal models, they can still run into some money. So clear as mud. What a record. Chapter 41. She had given me the banana chips without a word. Otherwise, we rode home in silence. Guilt seemed to eat at her as the next 2 days wore on, and I got my provisional license back, enough to buy the shuttle this weekend and take my final test on Monday. Still, I was worried about Paula. She had become a helicopter person, distant but always present at the edges, tormented. It was Friday, late in the evening. My appointment to view the shuttle at the spaceport was tomorrow, and Paula flitted by nervously, wanting to clean. Clean was code for check up on me after the events of Wednesday. I drew out my tablet and held it out to her. Take mine and take yours. Oh dear. I just had a browser crash. Just a moment. I apologize. Today is a testament to Murphy's Law. I'll be right back with the story in a moment. Hey, Allie, what phone network are you on? Chapter 41. Starting Over Again. She had given me the banana chips without a word. Otherwise, we rode home in silence. Guilt seemed to eat at her as the next 2 days wore on, and I got my provisional license back, enough to buy the shuttle this weekend and take my final test on Monday. Still, I was worried about Paula. She had become a helicopter person, distant but always present at the edges, tormented. It was Friday, late in the evening. My appointment to view the shuttle at the spaceport was tomorrow, and Paula flitted by nervously, wanting to clean. Clean was code for check up on me after the events of Wednesday. I drew out my tablet and held it out to her. Take mine, and take yours. Leave them in the front room near the counter. Then come back here and shut the door, I ordered, and she eyed me concernedly. What is it you're up to? She asked. I'll tell you in a minute, but this has to stop, I admitted, and the guilty look on her face intensified. Snow, I'm sorry, she said. It's fine, just please do as I ask, I demanded, and she complied without a further word. A few minutes later, she was standing there in front of the door with it shut behind her. So what's this all about? She asked. I was on the Danube when the Hope died. Joyce Coswell was my best friend. I related in rapid-fire bursts, speaking more in that moment about what had happened than I had to anyone else before. What happened? She pushed for more information. I can't say any more. Suffice it to say I left the service, and it's the reason I'm going to Sentioc, I explained. The tablets are in the other room, just like you asked. No one can hear us. I know you're concerned, but there's more to it than that. Her eyes focused on me. I could feel their intensity. My chest heaved as I relived it all over again. I can't stay too much more, but I was the astrogator. I was forced to leave them behind. Please don't ask me anymore. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to think about how I killed her. My voice, even through my collar, shook. My heart raced, and I wanted to swoon or run or die, whichever got me the fastest away from those awful memories. I had no idea. The awareness dawned across her face. Oh God, Snow, I'm so sorry I did that to you. I just wanted you to make a few friends, she explained. Paula, I don't hate you. You're one of the kindest humans I've met post-shift. You're proof there's hope for the species, I praised, fully meaning it. She blushed. I don't know if I'd go that far. I would. It's a cast of thousands out there, but you stand out, I continued. Oh, it's not all that bad, she scolded. It's not good and bad. People seem to value the preeminence of their own viewpoints over others. It makes everything twisted, but I'm learning something. In a way, it's all valid. I'm a hare, you're a human. Joyce was an otter, a feral like me. She had the same challenges, ran into bad people, but you know how she treated it? Her memory burned like a bright blue star in my mind. How? She asked. Games. It was all joy for Joyce, even the ugly parts. Paula, I woke up in the tank and felt more alive and complete than I had my entire life, but at the end of the day, it was still me living the life. A new me, hopefully better than the old, but I continued. My bias continues, my viewpoint continues, and so does everyone else's. It starts to go wrong and get ugly when people think theirs is the only one that matters. The words were imperfect, the idea half formed, but I was coming to something. Paula approached and sat down on the bed next to the chair I was currently perched in. She reached out her hand, then stopped, waiting for confirmation. I nodded. She gently stroked my ears, eliciting a flutter from my left hind paw. You know, you don't have to leave. Stick around a while. Keep an old woman company, Paula offered. It's not that easy. I made deals, agreements with people that will see that I keep them. There was a cost for my freedom, Paula, and I'm still paying it. I'm going to be paying for it the rest of my life. That's my duty and that's my path. Even this conversation is taking a risk, a big one. Hence my concern about the tablets. The conviction was firm within me. Joyce's last words echoed, my black act damning me by my own conscience, yet distantly now. Agreements worked with infernal powers were extracting their consequences to full and devastating effect. Paula rose and set down a haybrick on the table. They were becoming a regular feature. I'd find bundles of them waiting when I got home from recertification every day. She cared. The idea rocketed through me, bringing with it a warmth, a sense of belonging, comfort, as if pieces of my spirit, numbed by experience, were slowly responding again from a long, death-like sleep. My joy was always short-lived. Memories of Joyce rose in counterpoint. The panicked noises from the final transmission. The inescapable reality that the last person I truly cared about, I had murdered with my cowardice. The emotions screaming within me, I winced and dipped my muzzle down, hopping to the bed, curling around her otter plush. Thank you for trusting me. I promise you I'll never utter a word of this to another soul, Paula announced, stroking me a few more times along my ears before leaving me to my grief. Chapter 42. You know what I've often wondered about? And this is something that, I'm the author. I could write a what-if story. But I've often wondered what would have happened if Snow had stayed. You know? What if she had just gone public? Created a scandal? Once the word was out, what could they have really done? If they had disappeared, or... That would have raised a lot of questions, wouldn't it? It was important to me in the writing of the story that it was her guilt and her shame that was driving her path towards exile more than anything. Chapter 42. The Scout 89 set upon a private shuttle pad in San Francisco International Spaceport. Most likely it deserved to be in a museum. It was old, from 2040, 9 years before I was born, and clearly showing its age. Constructed by rivet and outdated welding techniques, you could see light dustings of rust in its thick layered hull at the seams. She was a relic of another time. She's ancient, but she's been retrofitted twice and refueled recently, containing a Gen 3 fusion reactor on board. Those are rare. You can't kill them. They last forever. A UEA quartermaster explained, focused only on his mission of salesmanship. He was in his 40s and was wearing a flight suit, holding a digital clipboard. My ears perked at the mention of a recent refueling, but the ship itself was fascinating. It showed how much had changed. I had read about these in high school. These ships patrolled out in 3-month arcs and were crewed by 2-man teams at the very beginnings of human stellar exploration, a time when there was little support and little help. It has 4 layers of hull, I commented, in no way an engineer. Oh yeah, they never trusted anything back in those days. Everything in the ship is redundant. You should meet my granddad. Talks about this stuff all the time, he said with a smile, trying to be affable. My curiosity was piqued. Was he a pilot? Nah, a mechanic. Worked out the watchtowers out near Saturn. That's where these babies deployed from, he said, proudly sharing his family history. Everyone knew about the watchtowers, the initial defensive perimeter. Just after the atomic apocalypse in 2031, the Far Horizon Project, a drone with the first near-light drive prototype, crossed the boundaries of the outer solar system and entered interstellar space. The world held its breath as it registered an external detonation before falling silent, its feed abruptly cut. There, on the edge of their own created annihilation, a new fear was sown into humanity, that they were not alone and now vulnerable in the night. In a second fiery moment the world had changed again, uniting under the banner of the UEA against potentially greater threats looking just beyond the veil of the solar system. 14 years later, the Hammerhead was commissioned, the first human space-based warship. These shuttles bridged the gap in time and were part of the initial defense. "So what do you think?" he asked, snapping me out of my reflection. He was eager, if not the greatest salesman. "I think I like it," I replied, bounding up the ramp. The cabin was one large room. Rows of toggle switches lined panels, and keypads with LED lights blinked from their perch. There were very few touchscreens or anything fancy. Many of the keypads seemed strangely polished, their numbering chipped and faded from millions of moments of contact with human hands. "Well then, how about we just sit down in my office and discuss the terms of sale?" he replied with a grin. It really wasn't like I had any other choice. "Okay, buddy," I replied. 3 hours and 85,000 credits later, I had a new home and could almost fly it. With that done, it was time for stage 2. I had a flight test on Tuesday, and I had to get it retrofitted before then. No pressure. Still, the analog nature and mechanical construction of the shuttle made that much easier. It was largely set up, and a few aftermarket strap-ins and a longer chain for the shower would essentially have it configured to work with my dexterity. Nonetheless, there were some things that I had to have professionally done, but for now I just needed to be able to fly it. Now if I could just get this package open. Furred paws do not do well on plastic packaging. Its inner contents contained a type of sling that fit over the pilot's joystick. It would compress my paw to the yoke and relieve my need to grip it as hard, providing me with better contact to the essential control device of the ship. "Open, you damn thing!" My fingers, such as they were, kept slipping. It met its match when it met my teeth. Strong incisors built for the destruction of twigs, sticks, and stalks proved an ample match for plastic blister packaging. Someone in product design was definitely getting their chuckles out of this. Fumbling with it, getting it slid over the stick, it took a few more minutes of adjustment, but I was able to slide my paw into it. It felt good. I was feeling less worried about killing myself or the instructor due to dexterity issues. Generally, thundering in a fiery heap is looked upon poorly in proficiency evaluations. Go figure. Heavy boots thudded up the ramp, causing my ears to swivel instinctively towards their direction as I added what I could to the ship to make its operations more streamlined. "You need to clear this pad. This shuttle's been sold," a security officer barked gruffly, his frame silhouetted against the bright light streaming in from outside in stark contrast with the lamps of the cabin. "Just a moment. Working on that presently," I responded, distracted in the pilot's seat, working out the control scheme. Comm to the left side, guidance on the right, diagnostic center ahead of stick. All standard. The jetting silver toggle switches were novel. No shiny buttons. "You got 15 minutes or we're moving it for you, long ears," he reported with a heavy turn before thudding down the ramp just as quickly. Punching a few commands into a keypad, the shuttle connected to the data server at the spaceport. On an upper left monitor, a map of the terminal appeared. It was just a quick trip to long-term parking. This was simple business and did not even require a radio into ground control. I kept reminding myself of that fact as I flipped its switches and entered commands. With a shaking rumble, it came to life. A high-pitched whine seemed to grow in intensity and pitch in the back as the reactor spun up before abruptly falling silent. No angels yet. Now to see if I could move the thing. Flipping the switch for the ramp, it raised, and I prepared for my first flight as a locomorphic pilot. Nervousness ate at the edges of my resolve, and my paw trembled as I engaged its taxi mode. The craft leapt up off the pad and hovered steadily in the air. Progress. The sling hurt my paw slightly, needed adjustment, but there was no time or opportunity to do that on the fly. For now I had to get it across the terminal and onto its new pad. That would be enough for the day. It was a 10-minute trip, but it took me half an hour. Moving slow, watching, hyper-vigilant, I was exhausted by the time I came to a rest at Shuttle Pad C, but I was here, and I was done, ready for my flight test. Sliding my aching paw out of the sling, I collapsed heavily down into the pilot's seat. Mayhem managed. I finally had time to think. Hopping down from the chair, I regarded my new world. This was home now. Sure, I was staying with Paula until I deployed on the 16th next month, but this was going to be my home. Syntioch. Alone. Was I really going to do this? The 85,000 credits missing from my bank account certainly seemed to indicate in that direction, not to mention the Admiral at my discharge from the hospital. Like it or not, this was my life now. Strange feelings rumbled through me as the conviction settled home. This was mine, and that meant something. Hopping around through the new space, nosing through cabinets, I found tiny relics of its life, running many crews, performing many duties. A bit of graffiti hidden behind a shelf reported that Jackson was there in 42. I wondered where he was now, and if he still remembered the 89. Poking around, I found a few other memorials and mementos, relics of months in deep space with little to do, and felt a growing kinship with my new craft. Just like me, she was haunted by old ghosts. We made a good pair. An instinct seized me without a thought. I leaned up on my hind paws and ran my lower jaw along a beam above the lower bunk, chinning, making it my own. The action only tied me further to this new space, making me feel more connected to it. Yes, I think I liked her, which was good, because like it or not, we were going to be together for a long time. Chapter 43. Just gonna keep on pushing here. My stomach was doing somersaults as I nibbled down a haybrick. The overpowering aroma of coffee along with sweet perfume competed, dominating any other smell, as Paula sat across from me, watching in silence. "Today's the big day, huh?" she asked, taking a sip. "Yep. After this, the month is mine until I head up to my ride to Syntioch," I reported. The time had melted by in a blur. Joyce had been gone for over a year, and so much had changed in that time. There was a feeling of distance to John and my old life, even what I had done. Everything that had happened in the meantime filled up too much space, had pushed things out to the horizon. Still, at night especially, when everything got quiet, I could hear her last words to me echoing like a distant ghost, reminding me of the black stains upon my soul. "Don't let this kill you. Don't let this stop you. Remember me. I love you." As much as those words had become an agony, they had also been my salvation. They were the only reason I had persisted through the first long months following the event, and now they urged me on, back towards the stars, even though I had the beginnings of a new life here. It was a false spring. As much as I had found friendship in Paula and something nearing a home in my tiny back room, my future was on Syntioch 1. Whether I wanted to go or not was immaterial. Some choices are made for you. "It sounds so lonely what you're doing. What happens if you need help? What happens if something goes wrong?" Her concern was touching. Paula gave me reasons to hope. "Manage as best I can. I told you I made promises, but it's more than that. Call it fate, call it destiny. Something's pulling me out there. Some of it I know is my ghosts. The promise I feel I have to keep, but there's something more there. My fate is on that planet, not this one. It hardly made sense to me, which made it even harder to explain. It sounds lonely. She fired another salvo in mock debate as she took another long pull off her coffee. Hares are solitary creatures. I'll be fine, I excused as my tablet vibrated. You better get moving, she intoned, knowing just as much as I that it was my signal to hop down to the BART station. I should. Wish me luck, I replied, taking the time to stretch and pop my back. Paula rose and petted back my ears and offered me another haybrick. I quickly scarfed it down. Good luck. If you run into any problems, just call. I'll be there, she reminded, brooding like a mother hen. Will do. I turned and she opened the door. I darted out and hopped at rapid pace all the way down the 3 blocks to the BART station. Speed was my ally, especially in the human world. Come to think of it, it was not so different for hares in the wild either. It was an uneventful ride, the normal parade of human ignorance, curiosity, and apathy, and I soon found myself back at long-term parking. The instructor waiting outside of the shuttle. Miss Dawkins, right on time. I'm Jeremy Porter. Let's get this out of the way, he announced in neutral tones. It felt refreshing that, for the moment, he considered me to be nothing more than a prospective pilot, saying nothing about my form and showing no reaction to it. Works for me, I replied and began a thorough check, starting with a walk around looking for issues with my craft, as he watched from a distance with an inscrutable look upon his face, taking the time to tap at his large tablet that he carried or entered data into it. After 15 minutes of largely perfunctory tests, we were ready to board. Okay, strap in, seat belts, I called out, returned a few more taps of his tablet. More, largely unnecessary checks. Reactor fuel level, check. Cabin pressurization, check. Life support, check. Lighting, check. Guidance and comms, check. I ran her through every diagnostic check I could think of. The list went on and on as he worked himself down into his seat, bored out of his mind. Me, I was on the edge of terror. After a full hour of diagnostics and function tests, I finally broke the silence apart from my call-outs. We are board green and ready for flight. All systems report stable. Ready to move to flight test on your order. I slipped back into old patterns from the military, trusting them to guide me through. Well, you certainly are thorough, he commented. It was the first time he had said anything that didn't make him sound like a robot. I can't afford not to be. Especially not today, I replied in near desperate tones. Relax. All I care about is that you don't kill anyone, me included. So far, you're passing with flying colors. Let's go through the ground control clearance, make a quick loop into orbit, and you'll be all done. He smiled, loosening up some. It felt good to know that at least he was impartial. It buffeted me. I knew I could still fly, even if the butterflies in my stomach were having a thrash concert complete with mosh pit. I flipped up the comm switch. Ground control, came a dispassionate voice from over the speaker. This is Snow Dawkins aboard the Scout 89 requesting clearance for an orbital loop for mandatory evaluation and testing, I reported, following protocol to the letter. I have you. Transponder is pinging. Clearance granted. Safe flight and good luck, miss, came the reply from the controller. The butterflies seemed to triple in number, and no longer content with their concert, decided to go for a quick and bloody war. But still, I held by falling into the rigmarole of routine that had carried me through years in the service. If you're ready, let's get underway, I reported as Mr. Potter nodded, slipping back into his detached ease. I worked my paw into the sleeve that held my paw to the yoke and flipped a few switches. The 89 leapt up into the air, and I very gently began my ascent up into the heavens, setting course and guidance. It took 30 minutes. We ascended into orbit, and then I guided us back down, landing again safely on the pad. Potter sighed and tapped a few more entries into his device. Congratulations, miss, you passed. You are a safe and sane pilot, better than many I've tested and passed. Thank you, I replied, and relaxed as I lowered the ramp. Every hurdle in front of me I had handled. Every challenge was done. With just a few weeks remaining, there was no longer anything to stop me from leaving. That thought hung in the air, like a heavy storm cloud. Just like that, my pilgrimage was over, and now there was only the fruits of my labor to collect. A lifetime alone, mourning the people I had ended with my cowardice. In that moment, I truly did not want to go, but it mattered little. With a heavy heart, I shut down the shuttle and began to make my way back towards my temporary home. Let's wrap, guys. Chapter 44. The month melted by in a blur, but all things come to an end. That was one lesson I had firmly learned. San Francisco International Spaceport, private shuttle parking. My old rust bucket, quickly retrofitted and crammed full of food, now waiting with its ramp down. My last day on Earth. The feelings competed with my memories of Joyce, the familiar pattern of their interruptions a normal part of my life. It was as if they had become a filter that engaged at will, shaping my view of my world. Now it was my turn to wonder if I would ever return, and of what awaited me. The excitement wasn't there. I was going to be alone. It would be quiet. But it's what I had wanted. Time away. Distance from everything that had ever made me damn them. I don't want you to go. Paula was a blubbering mess, wiping tears from her eyes unsuccessfully with a makeup-stained tissue. I have to. I'm sorry. Still, I will never forget you or your kindness. You saved me, Paula. Showed me some people are still good. I'll never be able to thank you enough for that. An agonized yelp escaped as she went down on one knee and hugged me without preamble, crushing me against her softer yet larger frame. You are a good, sweet bunny. You remember to eat now. She stroked my ears affectionately. Good luck, and thank you again. I hopped aboard and began flipping switches, sliding my paw into the modified sling that let me easily manipulate the joystick. Tilting to my left, I flipped up the metal switch for radio access. This is Scout 89, requesting orbital exit arc towards the Masamune, transmitting credential. More switches to flip. A light illuminated over a card slot where a tiny chip contained the flight path data I had entered. Everything in this old bucket was manual, from a different era of space travel long before man was comfortable out there. Paula waved as the ramp drew to a close. Flight path approved, Scout 89. Safe flight. Ground control confirmed. With a rumbling shake, the shuttle went through its startup and began to ascend from the pad. Rising into the sky soon revealed the familiar backdrop of space, the near eternal theater of stars, waiting always just beyond the blue veil of Earth's sky. An hour passed. Then I came upon the Masamune spinning in space. With minimal greeting and no reception, I made my way forward, matching her rotation. I was cargo, I reminded myself, as I glided to a halt in the shuttle bay, and then was largely forgotten. 7 months ticked by in that tiny space. The days bled into one another as I kept myself busy with equations, maneuvers, and binge consumption of media. There were no visitors, just me, just the silence I had earned. While I was within range, I had kept in touch with Paula, but the old radios lost their reach after the first jump. My world faded, became small and quiet. With no need for my harness or collar, I packed them away in my old footlocker containing the relics of my former life. Routine. For months the same routine of wake up and busy myself until sleep. Finally, a day came where I had to fish my collar out of the box to work with ops. As they dropped me off just outside the gate, my last month spent drifting slowly, half the time accelerating, half the time decelerating. Hurry up and wait. Finally, after an eternity of stars, a blue-green planet appeared in the window of the shuttle, complete with a strange asteroid moon, irregularly shaped, floating in the spectral night. Pulling up the data for the colony, there were 2 large clearings. I selected the smaller of the 2 and began my descent to my new home. Landing, the ramp lowered on my new home. By that time I was fully accustomed to the silence. Syntioch had wind though, and weather, cycles of sunrise and sunset. They were welcome changes after months in isolation. Otherwise it was calm and peaceful. I was the first resident of the world that did not have roots. I explored, happy to be free of my confines. The first months passed quickly. I made daily runs from my clearing to the colony site. Then the second month drifted by, followed by another. I stopped keeping track. I stopped doing a lot of things. Memories of that dream just a scant few days before my tanking became my reality. I spent my days watching from the top of the ramp or under my shuttle as the meadow drifted by, as we quietly orbited the star. Spring to summer, then winter, and back again. Sometimes it rained. Sometimes it snowed. The wind blew and the plants went about their cycles. But little else changed. I quietly waited and watched, content to be a forgotten relic of a life that could have been on a distant world deep in space, until even that faded. By the time I realized I was slipping towards feralism, maybe 2 or 3 years in, I hardly cared. I had my nest of blankets, I had my clearing, everything I needed. Until, one day, even words started to get strange. Don't let this kill you. Don't let this stop you. Remember me. The words echoed, though their meaning mostly lost, but their impact still somehow brought emotion and connection. I nosed into the otter plush that stayed with me in my nest of blankets under the table, and explosions of scents, my own mixed with hers, brought her to the forefront of my fading mind. Fish friend. I could never forget her, even while I forgot everything else. A heaviness pulled me down. For now, it was time to sleep. The story continues in Book 2 of the Farthest Star series, Exiles Return. And there we have it, guys. We got done a little earlier than I thought we would. Dawnbreak, a story about hope. It ends on such a somber note, doesn't it? So, what shall we read next week? Should I start on Exile's Return? I mean, I wouldn't mind. I mean, that would be, I've got the 7th and the 14th. No. Yeah, next week is really kind of the last week before I'm... Well, no, the 29th and then the 7th. And then we're pretty much there. Okay, next week we'll start with Exile's Return. And I'll see what I can do to maybe post a few chapters here and there while I'm on the trail. Well, there is. You guys want me to go through chapter 1 of Exile's Return? Yep. At the very least, we can do that much. So, alright, guys, I need to hear from you, my 5 stalwarts. Chapter 1 of Exile's Return today, or do you want me to do this next week? We'll get started with Exile's Return, and we'll talk a little bit more then. I'm sorry for all the dead air. I was just reflecting on the end of Dawnbreak. Alright. I'll read chapter 1 of Exile's Return now. And then we'll continue on next week and get as far as we can in the next couple weeks into exile before I deploy out to the trail. Alright. Now remember, Exile's Return is the first thing I ever wrote, so it's written in a slightly different style than Dawnbreak. Exile's Return, Chapter 1, by Rebecca Mickley. Neural activity detected. Initiating log. Fear. Panic. The noise. The smell. Big predator. Something was here. Run. Flee. Have to get away. I dashed for my home, the tiny nest in the big cave. Streaking past the open door, I landed safe, happy in my home. It would surely never find me here. I could hear it. It was coming closer. It was making strange noises. Something seemed familiar about this noise. I heard it again. Hello! Lieutenant! Are you here? Hello! Scary noise, very loud. Must not be afraid of anything. Is it hungry? Does it want to eat me? Fear pushed me back into the dark back corner of the nest. Its comforting smells doing nothing for me. Suddenly, a dim spark in the back of my mind began to glow like an ember catching dry grass. There was something special about that noise it was making. That smell. It was so familiar. Fear was goading me to run, but I had to remember something so important. I had to. Like lightning, my eyes snapped open. Shit. What happened? I shook my head, trying to take stock, while my instincts prodded me to hide, to run. Wait. I have to get a grip. Calm down. Bring your instincts under control. I hit a computer panel and gasped. The display was covered in dust, the screen flickering with the burden of age. Its message was as shocking as it was brief. It read, "Your last logon was over 3 years ago." My eyes were wide with horror, the realization slowly dawning on me, the terrible reality. 3 years lost to feral. 3 years without thought or memories. Hello! The voice was closer now, snapping me out of my sudden reflection. I had to think about what to do. Thinking was like pushing through a cold jail, concepts forming under the ice of years of lack of use. I sneezed as I shook and saw some dust fly up off the console. The room looked like a relic, forgotten and abandoned. A spot under the table held a nest of blankets. Somewhere, something inside of me thought, safe. What the hell had happened? I came here to escape, not lose myself. I heard a twig snap, and suddenly I skittered towards the door. Damn, they were getting close. Fragments of memory came floating back to me. How easy it was to relax and just let the animal take control. How seductive, how terribly liberating it had been just to let it slip. No, damn it, not now! Plenty of time to deal with my departure from reality later. Shit, I'm running out of time. Think, Snow. Damn it, what do you need? Voice caller, that's right! A dark part of my mind wondered if I could still use it. Knocking dust off of old boxes, I finally came across it, purple with a morphic identifier tag. I held the two ends and counted to 5, but it failed to respond. The batteries were dead. Frustrated, I dropped it just as I heard steps coming up the way. I hit the switch. that had been hastily bolted to the frame at my level, allowing the door to slide open before he could knock, every instinct telling me it was a stupid move. As I stared up at him, he towered over me, sending an involuntary spasm of fear through my body that made my fur stand on end. Fear reached up from the darkness and threatened to paralyze me, but my reason was still driving. I began making sign, only to be unceremoniously interrupted by this male with choking cologne. At least there didn't seem to be any more of them. He motioned to me and spoke rapidly. "Wait! Wait just a minute!" He fumbled in a pack on his right side, various bits falling out as he rapidly searched it. Finally he gave dissatisfied "Aha!" as he pulled out a voice collar. He really was tall, even for a human, about 1.88 meters, with black hair and green eyes. He wore a uniform, much like the one I had worn aboard the Danube when I was in the service. His boots were polished to a high shine. His scent, his real one, was a mystery because of that god-awful cologne he was wearing. I snatched the collar from his hand and pressed it to my neck. It activated, locking itself around my neck of its own accord, and handshaking with the nanites inside my bloodstream. Concentrating, I tried to speak. Nothing came at first, but unused pathways and micromachinery slowly ground to life. The effort was almost painful, but it was getting easier to take control. It was coming back to me, and with stuttering halts, I began to speak. What? I stuttered, trying to make the words form in my mind. "What reason came?" I began to pant, exhausted with the mental effort it took to use it. As the man spoke, my heart was still pounding, but slowly anger was taking the place of the fear I felt. This man was an intruder. He had barged into my home unwelcomed. This would not go unanswered. "Lieutenant Dawkins, I came here to seek your help. We have a matter that could use your attention." "Don't care! Leave! Shoo! Bad, smelly thing!" I spat, cursing myself for being so out of practice. Something told me the words I had just used would not be the most effective, but inside I still felt very scrambled. "Lieutenant, do I need to remind you that you are subject to involuntary recall at any time per your initial service agreement?" He crossed his arms, standing implacable. "No, no, no! Go away! Leave! Leave!" Inside my mind, part of me thought I had gone completely insane staring this thing down, but I held on. "Lieutenant, are you okay?" he asked, looking down at me, sounding concerned, though whether for me or for his mission was unclear. "Your speech is barely coherent. Look, we have a doctor on the ship. We'll get you checked out, and then we can go over details." I shook my head rapidly. "No need you help. Long time. No talk. Talk. Making noise. Shoo. Go away." Slowly words were coming back, patterns, making my speech more useful. I put my forepaws on my head and cursed my lazy brain. Fine is coming back. Patience. Long time. No talk. Rusty. "Okay, I can wait," he said. "Can't leave here without you anyway." We'll see about that, I thought. I wasn't about to go back with him or anyone else. This was my home, and I wasn't going to leave it. Neither the UEA nor Earth Central had any authority here. Syntiok 1 was an unclaimed, mostly uncharted world. It was the main reason why I had come. There was no way they could get to me here. Or so I had thought. Piss off! 7 years. Long time. You have no claim. I slammed down a paw for emphasis, the words coming easier now as my nanites got used to transmitting my thoughts again. I watched him closely. In truth, my instincts wouldn't let me look away. He muttered something about doing it the hard way and gave a sigh. I cocked my head. He was obviously not used to dealing with a morphic with sharp hearing. "It seems anger helps your speech, little bunny. Are the words coming easier now?" He was taunting me. I stared at him in disbelief. Wasn't he just trying to give me medical help? My mind still wasn't working right and couldn't decipher the sudden shift in his mood. Under the Emergency Recall Act, we have the authority to reactivate you. Thanks to your conversion, you are still healthy, young, viable, and ready for a mission. Now, are you going to come peacefully, or do we have to use force? I'm willing to take a bet as to how far you can get before I drop you with my pistol. Don't worry, I've set it to stun. The bastard seemed to be enjoying this. He smiled at me the way a kid smiled before he ripped the wings off a fly. Piss on your damn act! This isn't Earth, nor is it an aligned world. For all intents and purposes, it's uninhabited. Your law has no effect. I was making a quick recovery, and I inwardly thanked the gods of nano-augmentation. Didn't you see the news? The bastard was toying with me at this point. I looked up sourly at him as he continued to speak. As of this morning, this is an Earth-aligned world. We've officially laid claim. An Earth-aligned world? Whatever was going on was bad enough that they were willing to claim this entire backwater planet for the force of law? Suppose it didn't matter to them. Theirs or not, they could do what they wanted at will anyway. I had learned at least that much in my years of service to these bastards. I looked up, crestfallen, beginning to feel the noose tightened. This was serious. I could not find any way out, and that voice in my head telling me to run was sounding more and more tempting. I felt trapped and scared. My thinking was still muddled. I was trying to make sense of this, but my mind kept flashing to a feeling of being trapped, being up against a wall, cornered. My heart was beating sickeningly fast, and I had to will myself to keep calm and not to run. Sighing, feeling more and more defeated the longer this went on, I asked, "What do you want me to do?" "Lieutenant, we want you to talk to the Mendians for us. We think your unique position will be valuable." "I haven't spoken to anyone in years. Why would you even want me? What's so unique about my position? I was just an astrogator." "All I know is that they asked for you," he said quietly. "Asked? For me? Not possible. You must be joking." "Afraid not. And the rub of it is we don't know why either. We need you to come with us to help us figure it out." "Well, what happens if I refuse?" I asked defiantly. "I'm not exactly up to helping your sort. What are you going to do if I just refuse to go along?" "Trust me, you don't want to do that," he replied flatly. "Look, I don't want to be any more nasty than I've been already." "Nasty? Is that what you call it? Coming to someone's planet and dragging them off in chains? What happens if I refuse?" I demanded again. The anger flowed through the voice caller, and I saw him take a step back. For all of his bravado, he did not seem to be enjoying this. "If you refuse, you will be stunned and transported Earthside, where you will be tried for desertion and treason. You will get life imprisonment, or worse, and you will never see a scrap of green again. We will make sure of it. You can either go easy or say goodbye to your quiet little sanctuary." He almost snarled it out. "The choice is yours. Go easy or go hard. Either way, you are leaving today. I'm sorry, but that is the message I was told to deliver. Those are my orders." Something in his eyes flashed. It almost looked like regret, but everything about him showed the work and the discipline of a professional soldier. It seemed obvious that, for him, this was just business. He unsheathed his pistol, a sleek model of black and chrome with a green energy bar on its left side. He checked the setting and aimed it right at me. I felt my blood run cold and the rage build within. "You know, it's sons of bitches like you that were the reason I left in the first place. I've had a gun pointed at me before, but I suppose you know that. Does that gun make you feel big, mister?" "You may address me as Lieutenant Commander Charles Stevens. Are you coming or not?" he said flatly, my bravado having no effect. I looked at the pistol menacingly. At that moment I hated him. Memories flashing through my mind of that fateful day on the Danube. I scanned around, turning slightly, but he aimed more intently and said, "That is not advisable. I can make this easy for you. I I know you aren't dumb. It's obvious. You have to have some kind of brain to do all that math for astrogation. Come with me peacefully, help us work this out, and you can come back. In and out. I swear. You have my word as an officer. I felt trapped. Panic threatened to seize me. The instincts were so loud to run, it was agonizing beating them down, but no, I couldn't. Couldn't I? No! He had me dead to rights. The only way out was to cooperate. As odious a proposition as it was to do so, I had to play nice. Well, Lieutenant Commander, given my options, I suppose I have no choice. Give me a few minutes to pack. By the way, when you note this in your log, I expect you to document that this is under protest and against my will. Certainly, Lieutenant. As long as you're coming, I don't care if you want me to document that you're a pink unicorn. I will do everything I can to make this as pleasant as possible for you. I was heartbroken, but I couldn't let them see it. Wouldn't give them the satisfaction. As he left, I kept my composure until I let the doors slide closed. God damn it, this was a nightmare. I remembered back to 8 years ago, the first day out of the clinic. I had felt more free in that moment than at any other in my life. I ran my paws through cool black dirt, tasted my first sprigs of fresh grass, and reveled in the joy of being a new creature with a new life. I had sold my house and cashed out my pension to afford this shuttle on my passage out to Syntiac 1. I looked around the dust-covered relics of a life that I had almost completely abandoned 3 years ago. Something deep within me still saw all this as valuable. After all, my nest was still right there under the table, the blankets bearing a familiar shape. I stood in my sanctuary, my last refuge from humanity and their hatred, their greed, and violence. I had run beyond the stars to escape them, but I had not run far enough. Now they were going to drag me back to serve them again. I ran my paws over my old footlocker, something that had been with me since basic and followed me home after my honorable discharge. Like everything else in my quarters, it was covered in dust. I kicked up a cloud of the choking stuff and sneezed again. Clearing it off, I could see my old name in bright yellow letters. It read Dawkins, J. SN 48892926516. I had buried my old life and my past in this box, and now I was digging it up again. Struggling, I suppressed the old memories, determined not to relive the past. Ferreting out my harness, I slipped it on, clipped it, and then pulled with my teeth to cinch it home. Being a snowshoe hare, as much as I am at least, you have to learn how to deal with limitations in dexterity. The lower one gave me less trouble, and I stretched and tried to adjust to the unfamiliar restriction. I slid off the voice collar that the captain had given me and took its power module, sliding it into the purple collar that held my service tags and identity disc. Checking to see that I had everything, I dusted my paws a couple of times and began to head for the door. I caught my tiny mirror on the way out. How long had it been since I had last looked? My fur was ungroomed and tousled. I looked like a wild animal, and I realized I had been living as one for a while now. Not much about me was different, aside from my wild appearance. Still about 1.2 meters tall if you counted my ears. I'd really stand out among my feral cousins, since I was almost 3 times their size. I smoothed down my fur, self-conscious, and wiggled my stubby, almost useless paw-like fingers through my fur. It was about as non-morphic as they came, but rudimentary thumbs were useful, even though mine still heavily limited me. I often ended up using my muzzle. I looked back from my mirror and towards the door. It shook me out of my reflection and refocused me on my hate. God, I hated them. I didn't want to go with them, but he had outlined it well. I had little choice. I could choose a little time now or the rest of my existence. It was logical, but it didn't stop hate from welling back up within my soul. I could feel my forepaws trembling, and damn it, I didn't want to go quietly, but it was the only way. The only way I could get back here was to do their bidding. I sighed, letting old habits and old memories take over and teach me how to be. There was so much different now, and so much still the same. I thought back to the Lieutenant Commander and what he had said. Aside from leaving, it didn't sound so bad. They wanted to talk to the Medians, and then I could come back, no problems. Now, I didn't trust them to really keep their word, but if all they needed for me was to talk, maybe it would be as easy as it seemed. Something inside me told me he was sincere when he talked about making it easy for me. If I was stuck, I was stuck. I just had to press on, get it done, and get back home. Just a short mission. Surely, I could handle that. Chapter. All right. So 3 years as feral. We can see greatly changed snow. And that's very intentional. In some ways, it gave her time to heal, gave her distance from her paw in the events of what happened with Dawnbreak and the Hope. In other ways, it kind of calcified her as a misanthrope. When she kind of came back to herself, there was a new distance from her grief, kind of replaced with an anger and a distrust. And I would honestly say she has a right to it. So alright guys, it's about 1:30. Questions, comments, concerns? I really do appreciate you all being here today. We've had a lot of fun. And we're getting really close to the trail. And well, Allie, we're not done yet. We still have the 29th and then the 7th. And our last reading will probably be on the 7th. I'll continue with Exile's Return until I get until I head out onto the trail. I can make no promises because of signals and connections or whatnot, but I will do my best to record segments of Exile's Return while I'm out there, as if I'm able, and I'll get them sent back to my IT department here and see about getting them uploaded for you guys. It's not going to be regular, and it may not even happen at all. I'm going to be moving 15 to 20 miles overland every day. I'm going to be focused very much on hiking and getting to Canada. But I will do my best to get updates out to you guys and maybe even do some reading for you guys while I'm on the trail. We'll just have to see what happens. The reading's going to be tough potentially because I'm only going to have one screen with me, which is my phone. But I'm pretty sure I can record and read at the same time, multitask. I guess we'll just have to see. So no promises, but I'll try. And we still have 2 weeks of readings with Rebecca before I skedaddle. My gosh, it's all come down to this. Alright guys, if there's... Yep, oh definitely, you can follow me on Snowy Trails on Instagram or Trails Hair on Twitter. I'm always pushing things out there, especially because that's also affiliated with my work and blogging for the Trek. And yeah, just give me a follow there, or also watch the Facebook page, Rebecca Mickley or Stego Prey. And yeah, stay up to date on all the news that's fit to print. Also, if any of you want to be a special partner with special Patreon perks and privileges, about my Pacific Crest Trail experience, there are 10 special slots available. They are a little pricey, maybe too pricey, so I'm not really expecting too much of a response out of there. But hey, if you're curious, they're there on Patreon. Um, all right, you guys are awesome. Thank you for coming this week. I'll leave it for a few more seconds, burn up some airtime before we close. Until next week. All right. Until next week, you guys have a safe and fun week out there. Onward towards the farthest star, and we are out. Same bun time, same bun channel.